Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mangs, and today I welcome you guys to another Advanced Wars by Web replay commentary. Today we're going to be taking a look at a very unique match. This is actually from one of my past live streams, the match that I played against one of my mods, Hanako, and the reason why I wanted to cast this match is because I kind of wanted to take a more in-depth look at it, take a look at what exactly happened, because when I played this match live, I played it with Fog of War, so I actually didn't see what Hanako did. Now this is a very unique match. We're playing Sturm versus Von Bolt. This is a matchup that you will only ever see on Advanced Wars by Web, because it is a matchup that is physically impossible to play in either of the games, because of course in Advanced Wars 2 you don't have Von Bolts, and in Dual Strike you don't have Sturm. So this is a very interesting and unique matchup, and one that actually was a lot of fun to play. Now let's briefly talk about the COs. So I am playing as Von Bolt right here. He has a passive 10% bonus to his firepower and defense. A pretty boring day-to-day bonus, but it is actually pretty strong. I mean, the 10% extra firepower isn't really that big a deal, but the 10% extra day-to-day defense, you really feel that when you go up against Von Bolt. It does make it very hard to take even engagements against him. He's just always gonna come out a little bit ahead, regardless of your matchups, which is incredibly difficult to deal with. He only has a single superpower, he doesn't have a normal power, and his superpower is, it has potential, but in this match you will just see just how useless it can be sometimes. It is ridiculously expensive, it costs 10 stars, it is one of the most expensive powers in the game. It's called Ex Machina, and it basically strikes a missile on the map. It will hit the greatest accumulation of unit value, so it will try to do as much damage as it can in terms of pure value. And it deals 3 HP of damage, which isn't really that much, but it paralyzes units for a turn. Now, basically what this means is that it is like the opponent has to press wait on the units on their following turn. The units will still defend themselves if attacked. It's not like they can't counterattack, it's just they can't take any actions. So the damage component of Ex Machina is not really that significant. 3 HP, that's like a missile silo. It can certainly be good, but it's the paralyze component that really makes this superpower so devastating, because of course if it hits the middle of the map and it takes out like multiple Neo-tanks, it can be quite game-breaking. Now, I am up against one of my mods, Hanako, who is playing as Sturm. Now, if this was Advanced Wars 2 Sturm, then this match would not be balanced at all. Advanced Wars 2 Sturm would wipe the floor with Von Bolt's wrinkly butt. However, on Advanced Wars by Web, Sturm uses his Advanced Wars 1 rule set, or something comparable to it. He gets 20% extra defense, but minus 20% firepower. However, he does retain his ability to move through terrain at no cost, which is pretty good on this map. And instead of just having one superpower, which he has in Advanced Wars 2, he actually has both a normal power and a superpower. It's just called Meteor Strike 1 and Meteor Strike 2. Meteor Strike 1 costs 6 stars and does 4 HP of damage with the Meteor, and Meteor Strike 2 costs 10 stars and does the standard 10 damage that we're used to. So, Sturm, I would definitely say he's probably a little bit stronger than Von Bolt on Advanced Wars by Web. The minus 20% firepower that he gets makes him pretty tough to play. He has a very hard time interrupting caps, especially up against Von Bolt, who also has that 10% extra defense. So it's like Sturm is basically fighting at a minus 30% disadvantage, which is pretty insane. However, Sturm's extra defense does make him very durable. His units are just very hard to get rid of. And of course, his ability to move through terrain is incredibly strong, especially on a map like this with so many mountains. Infantry can just basically sprint over the mountains, which gives him a huge mobility advantage. Now, in most of my matches when I play against Sturm and Advanced Wars by Web, I very rarely see any players use Meteor Strike 1. Statistically, Meteor Strike 2 is just more valuable, since it's 10 stars for 8 damage as opposed to 6 stars for 4 damage. I mean, it is twice as good without being twice as expensive. Now, if Meteor Strike 1 costs 5 stars, I think we would see a lot more players use it. However, I do think Meteor Strike 2 is just a better option overall, because, again, doing 8 HP of damage to a blob of units, it can just completely take a large chunk of units out of play. Now, I will add that on this replay, for whatever reason, the timer is still ticking down. I don't really know why. I guess the timer doesn't really display here properly. But you can see it just hit 0 right there. Nothing's really going to happen. However, this match was a high intense match. We are playing with high income, which means we get 2,000 per property instead of the normal 1,000, so we're going to see a lot of really expensive units. And we both played with around 11 minutes on the clock, with 1 extra minute added added per turn, so we had to move relatively quickly. Now, this map was actually really cool. I played multiple matches on this map, and I really enjoy it. It's called All Roads Lead to Seoul. Both players starts with 2 bases. Player 1 starts with 1 here and then 1 here, and player 2 starts with 1 here and then 1 here. And there's the third base, which we can capture relatively quickly in the center. Now, this match features pretty much 3 points of engagements. There's a battle going on in the center here with 4 properties that will constantly be fought over. And then you also have the 2 flanks here. You have this flank up in the northwest, and then you have this other flank here down in the southwest. And each flank contains 4 properties as well, so it's important to fight on all 3 fronts. You cannot really neglect one in favor of the other, as you will lose out on a lot of properties here. Now, as you can see, this map features a lot of mountains. There's 2 mountains in the center here. Very important to keep mechs and infantries on those mountains so you get a lot of vision of the center. There's also a lot of mountains on each side here. This particular cluster of mountains will be fought over a lot. Infantry, both from the center and from the flanks, will frequently go into these mountains to get more vision and be able to take shots at units down here. And of course, Sturm has a huge advantages in this area, as his infantry can just sprint over the mountains with absolutely no movement penalty. Von Bolt's infantry can only move 1 over mountains with his infantry, whereas Sturm can move over 3 mountains in 1 turn, so that's basically triple the mobility, which is insane. Now, mechs, of course, ignore terrain, so they are very strong here, but again, Sturm's infantry are going to be so powerful here. Each player has an airport that they can capture, and since we're playing a high-income match, we will see very expensive air units being built here. The HQ is relatively exposed, but not to the point where you will risk it being captured. Sometimes you might see a very daring infantry move going over and trying to get the HQ, but it's relatively simple to interrupt it. Now, one thing I definitely noticed in this battle, a very big weakness of Sturm, I would say, is how much he struggles to interrupt captures, especially against Von Bolt. I mean, with that minus 30% firepower that he gets, and those 3 defense stars that properties give, Sturm basically can do 0 damage to infantry on properties. And this is one thing I definitely noticed as the match went on, was that by just initiating captures, even captures I didn't think I had any chance of winning, I distracted Sturm so much because he had to divert so many forces just to be able to interrupt my captures. And you will see just how effective this ended up being. So let's actually jump into the first turn, shall we? So I start off by building 2 infantry. So as you can see right here, money is going to start piling up very rapidly for both players here. And it is very tempted to start buying very expensive units early on. But with 2,000 income per property, it is actually very important to build a lot of infantry. Because if one player forgoes any captures, then they're going to be behind a lot economically. Each capture is basically twice as effective. So normally in Advanced Wars, you know, if a player is 2 properties ahead of their opponent, they get 2,000. But in this matchup, they would get 4,000. So the gap would widen a lot sooner in this kind of matchup. So it's even more important to capture properly. And you can actually see right here, I did not know that Hanako did this, because this is the first time I'm watching the match back. I haven't taken a look at it before, and I wasn't able to see. I remember that Hanako built a tank very early on right here. And it took me quite by surprise, but I would actually say that this is not a good move at all, because Hanako is essentially sacrificing so much early game economy here to get out a tank early on. And while this tank ended up being quite effective, I actually do think that this ended up hurting Hanako greatly. So anyway, Hanako continues to cap right here, and again, building that tank really early on. I, on the other hand, just continue to cap. I decided to go for the airport early on. When you have a lot of money coming in, it's actually very smart to invest into a transport copter early. Now, when you're playing a low-income match with just 1,000 income per property, it's very hard to find the money to afford transport copters in the early game without being significantly behind in aggression. However, when you get 2,000, it's a lot easier to find that kind of money. And in fact, I would actually say that it's even more crucial to get transports out. Because when you have this amount of money, you're actually much more likely to run out of bases than you are to run out of money. So getting that 5,000 and getting a couple of transports out is actually very viable, I think, in a match such as this. So once again, I just build infantry. So anyway, Hanako continues to capture properties, sends her tank out into the center. And this is where I make a pretty big mistake, in my opinion. So I continue capturing properties, and then I actually go for double recon. Now, one of the reasons I decided to go double recon here was I thought that Hanako may be playing this match very greedily and just building infantry. So I figure, you know what, I might be able to punish this with a double recon play. Besides, I wanted to be able to get some scouting going on and see what Hanako is going to do, because here's the thing, a lot of Sturm players, they actually build rockets very early on. And the reason why they do that is because their rockets are so incredibly mobile. Sturm's ability to move over all terrains means that he can position his rockets extremely quickly into forests. So I figure, you know what, okay, if Hanako actually rushes out early rockets, then I can punish that with some early game recons. Of course, I didn't know that she already had a tank out in the center. Had I known that, I would never have built the recons. So again, this tank actually ended up being quite effective, but even so, I would say even if this tank gets insane value, which it will get, I still think it's a mistake to rush out a tank this early out in a matchup such as this, because that one extra infantry is going to amount to so much extra money over the course of a match. Now, we are actually tied, or relatively tied in income right now, 14,000 to 12,000. Hanako is going to be able to even that. And again, she builds another tank. So I open up double recon, Hanako opens up double tank, which on paper would be crushing in a normal match. But the thing is, this is not a normal match. This is a high income match. And a high income match just doesn't follow the same rules as a normal match, which you will see very soon. So again, Hanako builds a third tank. I think Hanako knows that I do favor the early recon play quite a lot, and I think she really decided to capitalize on this. Also, when you're playing a high timer match, like we are playing right here, it kind of makes sense to build very cheap and quick units that you don't have to think about a lot. Indirects are very hard to use in a match such as this, because the timer ticks down so fast, and so I would not recommend building a lot of indirects in a fast-paced match, because with indirects, you really need time to position them, you need to count the enemy's movement, you need to really think about where to place them. In a match such as this, when we have very little time to play around with, tanks are usually a much better unit to focus on. So again, I move out my recon right here. I don't see the tank. Hanako sees my recon. This was probably the worst move I could have made, and I do believe I moved the other recon out in a similar fashion. So yeah, look at that. Look at that. That's just a horrendous opener from me. I moved both my recons within vision range of Hanako's tanks. I mean, that is just so devastating, man. Like, I thought I really lost this match early on. When I look back at this, it is ridiculous how bad this is. Like, both tanks can scout my recons. Oof. Now, of course, Sturm does have minus 30% firepower, and Hanako hasn't captured her comm tower yet, so she won't end up dealing that much damage to my recons. Like, one of the recons is on a city, so that it has a lot of defense, but another one is on a road, which is really bad. So Hanako's turn rolls in, and she decides to build yet another tank. So she has 4 tanks on the field now. I have none. This would normally be like instant GG. Now, that is so interesting. She actually did not attack my recons. Okay. Okay, we're gonna have to take a look at that turn again, because this is not how I remember the match going. Okay, so this is extremely interesting looking back at this right now, because I do remember losing both my recons pretty early, but it's actually astounding to see that already now Hanako could have punished me so hard. So here, she actually has both of my recons within range of her tanks, but she decides not to go for them. I really don't understand Hanako's reasoning right here. This is a very strange play. Now, if you have the ability to attack your opponent's recons with tanks in the early game, you should definitely go for them. Now, I think Hanako was probably fearing that I had tanks ready to attack her tanks, but I still honestly think she should have gone for my recons. I got 2 recons, especially this recon on the road right here, just sitting here being completely exposed. This is a really weird way to play. I guess the idea was that she wanted to draw my recons away from my bases. I can only imagine that this is what Hanako was thinking, because I am still not aware of these tanks. And yeah, here I remember I move in with my recons. This was very reckless, honestly. And once again, you can see I did a massive mistake there. I didn't capture the comm tower first. This is probably one of my most egregious mistakes in the matchups that I play. I am very bad at capturing comm towers first. Here I could have gotten 10% extra firepower, probably reduced this infantry to 5 HP instead of 6. Really bad on me. So I got a transport out right now. I'm using it to transport infantry across the mountain. Again, in a high income match, always invest in transports early on. you can definitely afford it. And here, I decide to go for the Sigma grind set, you know, just get a Neo-Tank out early. I've been more and more fond of Neo-Tanks lately in my matchups. I actually think they are kind of worth it right now. I've been underselling the extra 1 movement that they get, and honestly, like, I'm having so much fun with Neo-Tanks when I play on Advanced Wars by Web. I still don't know how viable they are in terms of pure value, but having that +1 extra movement just makes them so good in matches, especially in matches like this where you don't have a lot of time. I would definitely say that in high-income matches that have short timers, Neo-Tanks are insanely good. But yeah, and I do move my... Yeah, so the replay doesn't quite catch this, but I do believe my recon gets itself trapped here. It's a little bit of a bug here, but let's just see what happens. I'm pretty sure I got trapped here. It doesn't show, I think. Yeah, there we go. So it doesn't show properly, but what actually happened here was that this recon was going to interrupt this cap, but then I got trapped by the tank. So maybe it wasn't such a bad idea for Hanako to pull her tanks back. Maybe. I mean, she drew me in, which was actually pretty clever. So maybe it wasn't such a bad play after all. We'll see. So Hanako finishes capturing right here. You can still see that Hanako actually has a massive income lead over me right now. 20,000 to my 16,000, which is actually pretty good. Anyway, so Hanako takes a shot on my recon right here, bringing it down to 5 HP. And takes another shot at my other recon. So both of my recon are at 5 HP right now, and I remember seeing this just going, ah, my god, this is not good. And brings in a third tank and destroys my recon, so that is really bad for me. I was hoping she might roll low on this one, because I think there was a pretty good chance this recon should have been left with 1 HP remaining, but either way, it would have probably been dead next turn. So again, Hanako playing really aggressively here, and actually now having a huge income lead over me. So this is, from an early onset, this actually is looking pretty good for her right now. And gets out a Neo-Tank of her own. Again, like, Neo-Tanks are just going to be really good in this matchup. And builds more infantry. So right now, you can actually see the value lead. Hanako has a 20,000 value lead over me right now. And has a massive income lead as well. So... wow, I mean, this is insane. Looking at how strong she was early on right now, like, we really have to keep an eye out and see actually what happened to turn this matchup around. So, I move my Neo-Tank out into the center. I realize that I have to apply pressure. And I send my transport back to pick up a mech. Having mechs in these two mountains is going to be incredibly valuable. And just because we're playing a high-income match doesn't mean that mechs aren't still going to be super effective. I get up a battlecopter early on. I realize that that's probably a pretty smart unit to get, especially on this match. I had battlecopters used against me on this map before, and to great effect, because these two mountain ranges allows them to dart back and forth. Like, you can have a battlecopter in this area, and as soon as an anti-air shows up, you just dart it behind this mountain range right here to harass the infantry. And once the anti-air shows up here, you can dart the battlecopter back into the center again. So just these two mountain ranges right here makes the battlecopter extremely strong. And I remember when I played this match against the Hawk player, I do believe that was like one of the first streams I did. I remember having a battlecopter absolutely crush me on this map. And that was even without Fog of War. I mean, Fog of War tends to make battlecopters better because you can hide them more. So day 7 rolls in, and again, let's see just how Hanako presses her advantage here. She finally gets her comm tower pretty late, but I'd say it's pretty okay. Moves her tank into this forest right here. I'd say that's a pretty good move. She starts capturing here. A little bit ambitious, maybe. Takes a shot here. That's also a really good move. Like, Hanako is playing perfectly pretty much right now. I'm really surprised to see just how behind I was on day 7. Of course, you can see the Sturm infantry just rushing over those mountains. Like, that ability to move through terrain is so broken. I would say it's the strongest part of Sturm's toolkit. Absolutely. So day 8 rolls in. I move my mech in. And once again, you know, controlling these two mountains is going to be so important in the center because it gives you vision everywhere. And here I see that there's a Neo-Tank on the city, and I know that attacking it is pretty much hopeless right here. This Neo-Tank pretty much has 50% extra defense, so it's going to be impossible for me to do any meaningful damage to it whatsoever. I interrupt this capture because, of course, I have to. Luckily, I have 2 infantry in the vicinity, so I know I'm going to get this. I pull my Neo-Tank back here on the property, kind of goading this Neo-Tank to come off and attack me. Of course, I know that's not going to happen. I build a second Neo-Tank because I have the income for it. And again, Neo-Tanks are pretty much going to be dominating this matchup. Again, it's about playing quickly as well, which is very important. So I send my battlecopter up north. Again, my point here is to try and solicit an anti-air response from Hanako. Have her anti-air come out here, and once it comes out here, just pull my battlecopter south. That's what I intend to do with this battlecopter right here. So I build more infantry and I send them into the center, trying to keep my recon alive as much as possible. Again, the vision is still going to be pretty important. Even with me holding this mountain right here, it's still important to have recon vision in the center in case that infantry gets taken away from me. So here Hanako shoots on my infantry in the mountain because she's Sturm. That's not really going to work. However, she has another infantry ready and takes out mine. It's pretty good, well played by her there. She pulls her other infantry back in because she's Sturm. She can do stupid shit like this. And she takes a shot at my recon, of course. With that minus 20% firepower, man, it is so hard for Sturm to kill units, and this is one of the reasons why, even though the defense is good, man, having minus 20% firepower on a day-to-day basis, that is a hefty penalty, man. It is so hard to kill units with that. It's basically like I have a crap ton of defense, and you can see here too, like this mech in the mountains, man, it takes no damage. It's insane to watch. Now, Hanako does have an abundance of tanks, so she's able to take up my recon right there, which cripples my vision, which is incredibly annoying. And she builds a bomber. And again, this was also a really good move on her. Like, if your enemy has Neotanks, build bombers. Bombers are the perfect counter to the Neotank. They can almost wipe them out in a single turn. Well, Sturm can't, but every other CO, like, if you can get a shot on a Neotank with a bomber, you're in a very good position. So, again, yeah, once again, she just continues moving into the center. Still has a massive value lead over me. Playing pretty passively with this Neotank, but I think that's fine, honestly. You don't really want to move it off and get it shot down. So day 9 rolls in, and I have my recon right here, which is wrecking havoc on Hanako's infantry down here, and I bring up my battlecopter as well. I'm going to try and get these two properties. I've been able to gain an income lead again, so I'm at 30,000 as opposed to Hanako's 28,000 right now, and that's because I'm starting to capture. I captured this property, and Hanako still hasn't taken the northwestern property away from me, and she still hasn't captured any of the southern properties. So I'd say while Hanako is playing really well in the center here, and while she still has a huge value lead over me, 99,000 to my 76,000, I would say that she's foregoing the properties in the north and the south, and that's probably why I was able to sort of like bridge the gap between us. Because again, every single property is going to generate so much income in a match like this. So I send out my Neotanks and I start attacking her in the center, send my transport. This is another thing I think Hanako should have done early on. She didn't build any transports. I'd say this transport gave me a lot of value over the course of the match. And I continue to go out down here and capture. I still have this mech right here in the center, which is just doing great. And again, this is another one of Sturm's weaknesses, interrupting caps, man. The amount of resources that Sturm has to divert to interrupt this cap is insane. But yeah, I continue to focus on it, and I build a bomber too. And I didn't know that Hanako had a bomber right now, but I decide, you know, there is only one way I'm gonna get rid of this Neotank, and that is with a bomber. Because I just don't have the firepower to attack it. I move my Neotank up into the forest. I know Hanako's probably going to spot this, and I do believe she probably did. Yeah, no, with this tank, she should have been able to spot it. This Neotank is really poor vision, but this tank right here has 3 vision, so it should be able to see it. But honestly, I don't care. At this point, I just want her to pull the Neotank off the city, because I can't really attack it on the city right now. Even though it's not an allied city, it's going to get a lot. It's going to get a lot of defense. I build another mech, and I decide, you know, I'm in a pretty good spot right now in terms of the 2 flanks. In the center, I feel like I have a pretty good presence as well. But Hanako still has a pretty significant value lead over me, so let's just see what happens. She goes down, attempts to capture this property. I don't really know what she was thinking here. Like, she's not going to get this, not with the 3 HP infantry. But she continues to apply pressure. The problem is she doesn't really have any follow-up right here. She's capping the city, but what is she going to follow it up with? Honestly, I think instead of building this bomber this turn, it would have been better if she built tanks and sent them to each side. An anti-air and a tank here and sending it to the north, and 2 tanks here and sending them south. I think that's what Hanako needed to do in this situation. Now, she's doing a pretty good job here, using these 2 weakened infantry to block the cap, which I think was pretty well done. And yeah, she moves into the center here. She starts to get aggressive. Again, she has a lot of tanks, which is, you know, is pretty good on her. She starts interrupting my cap. Look, can't even kill this mech. It is so hard to kill right now. And finally sends one of her tanks down south to interrupt my cap really well on her. And she sends her bomber in. Now, did I actually spot this? Yes, I did. So again, massive mistake on Hanako right here. This was probably one of the biggest mistakes that she did in the early game, I think, aside from letting me overtake her in properties. She knew I had this mech here. She could have spotted his vision. I can only chalk this down to probably her running low on time. But yes, this was a big mistake. Never, ever, ever reveal your bomber. If she had just put the bomber here instead of here, I would not have seen it, and she would have had a full extra round to do damage with it. Now I'm able to prepare a response for it. So again, should have killed this mech first, then she should have moved her bomber. So, and she builds a fighter. Honestly, this is a pretty good move on her, though. She knows that I will probably build a fighter in response to her bomber. Maybe she actually revealed it on purpose. That could actually have been the case. I mean, maybe she was playing mind games with me right here because, again, she saw that I saw her bomber, and so she builds a fighter in response. This is very interesting, actually. But yeah, she starts capturing my city. Not bad, honestly. She builds more tanks. This is good. She needs more of a ground presence. She brings her tank up here, attacks my recon. That's also pretty good on her. This recon definitely needs to get targeted because it's currently like wiping out her infantry in the north and she has no response to it. So this was pretty well played by her. She pulls her tank back into the forest to protect it. Again, like look at our value difference right now. She has a 27,000 value lead over me right now, and we're tied in properties. So once again, like as day 10 rolls in and Hanako is still massively in the lead here. So I pull my battlecopter down and I attack her tank. That tank is pretty much useless right now. However, I could have interrupted this capture if I just circled the battlecopter around. So maybe I should have done that instead. I'm kind of just letting her have the property. I'm not sure if I actually like that. Actually, no. Would you look at that? I actually attack her with the recon and bring her down to 9 HP. I still think she's going to get the city, but I remember thinking this was a pretty good move. So I pull my mech back, I put another infantry into the mountains. It's going to be practically impossible for Hanako to get rid of this infantry. That's just going to give me a ton of vision. I pull my neo-tanks over here. I see the bomber. I'm like, okay, I need to have some kind of response to that bomber. I interrupt the cap, of course. Can't let her take one of my properties. That would be really bad. And I put my bomber out here. I don't think Hanako can see it. I didn't know if she had any recons hidden, but I'm pretty sure Hanako is not able to scout that bomber right now. So I move my mechs over, use my transport copter to bring the mech over into this southern mountain range right here to ward away this tank. And of course, I'm not going to let her have this city. That was a pretty useless cap. And yeah, I remember building 2 anti-air here because, again, I see this bomber and I know I have to do something. So I know that if Hanako attacks my neo-tank this turn, she'll be within range of my anti-air. So I am pretty confident that that's going to be a good thing to do. And I build a rocket here. Probably should have built a lot more rockets in this matchup, honestly. Rockets are really good in this kind of match. There's so many good places to place them. This forest right here is spectacular. It covers the entire center. If you can put a rocket in this forest right here, it's very safe and it covers the entire center. If you can get a rocket here where this tank is hiding, that's also a fantastic spot for it. If you're very ballsy, you can put a rocket right here, but it's a little bit dangerous to do that because it's so exposed in the center. But again, this is a really good map for indirects, and I should have built a lot more indirects than I currently was, I think. So my turn rolls in, or sorry, Hanako's turn rolls in. She does a join cap, which is very smart. She really wants to get this. And here comes the bomber, and she actually goes for my neo-tank, which I thought was kind of surprising, honestly, because, yeah, she's kind of just throwing away this bomber right now. And of course, she is trying to wipe out the neo-tank completely, which I do like. And once again, man, reveals her fighter to me. And I remember, like, I think this was, again, one of the biggest mistakes that Hanako did over the course of this match was not covering her air units better, because she sees that I have an infantry in the mountain, but at this point she just doesn't care if I see her air units or not. I remember when I saw this fighter, I was like, oh wow, a fighter, okay, that's extremely clever. But again, man, you never want to reveal your units. It is so bad. She successfully takes down my infantry in the mountain, which is pretty well done. She got a little bit of a good luck roll there, I think. Interrupts my capture down in the south, which is also pretty good. And builds an anti-air. That's pretty smart. I don't think she sees my bomber at this point, but I guess it's always nice to have anti-air around regardless. So again, look at the mobility of her units, man. She's just able to circle around and do like the extra mobility that Sturm gets is so disgusting. So yeah, she starts going for my comm tower. This is a bit of a ballsy move, but I guess I don't hate it. Like, at least it keeps me rather occupied. And she builds another neo tank, which is quite clever. So day 11 rolls in, and if you take a look at our value difference right now, 107,000 to 149,000. So Hanako is crushing it right now, and we're still tied on income. So looking at this right now, there is no doubt in my mind that Hanako should have won this match. So my turn rolls in, I attack her tank with my Neo tank, pull my Neo tank back to get repaired. I know I usually don't say you shouldn't do this, but in a high income match, I think it's actually warranted because, again, when you play a high income match, you're more likely to run out of bases than you are to run out of money. So repairing your Neo tanks, actually, I don't think is a bad idea in a match like this. Get a really good shot on our bomber, takes it down to 3 HP, so that bomber is practically useless right now. I interrupt the cap on her com tower, and I start going. You can see I'm capturing multiple properties right now, so I'm about to get a big income lead if Hanako doesn't do anything right here. I take out her tank, or leave it mostly useless. I pull my recon back so that I can still scout with it. And yeah, I just, you know, I continue to just interrupt caps. This was a pretty good turn for me, honestly. This rocket got me a lot of value as well. And here I decided to do something kind of weird. I move my bomber out, and I actually attack her Neo tank, even knowing that there's a fighter here. And the reason why I felt confident doing this was because I have anti-air in the vicinity. So if she attacks my bomber with her fighter, I can attack her fighter. But then again, I remember it dawned on me, like, if I don't have any air units, what's the point in attacking a fighter, you know? Like if you don't have any air units, a fighter is practically just a glorified roadblock. I mean, it can still be used to like block my units and prevent them from reaching hers, but I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't actually need to fight this fighter right now because I don't have any additional air units aside from like a transport copter. But I move my anti-air. Against any other CO, I would never have done this. I would never have placed my anti-air so far in the front because she has multiple tanks that could have taken it down. But against Sturm and his minus 20% firepower, I actually feel confident doing this because I know that even Sturm's tanks will not do much damage to this anti-air when it's on a property because of the way defense stacks. But still, I do place some infantry around it just to keep it safe because I do want it to be relatively on full health. So yeah, once again, I build mechs, a Neo tank, and I build a second transport copter because I realized that, you know what, the capture phase is going to be very important, and having 2 transport copters to ferry infantry into the center is actually going to be very useful. And already you can see I got 2 properties this turn. I'm up to 34,000 to Hanako's 30. So Hanako needs to do something about the capture phase really quickly. She might still have a massive income lead over me, or massive value lead, although right now it's 135,000 to 105,000. So that was a really good turn for me, but keep in mind Hanako hasn't built units this turn yet and hasn't moved either. So again, sending her fighter, taking my bomber out of action. I remember seeing this going like, I'm not sure if I actually will get to attack her fighter this turn because of all the terrain. So now she's starting to focus a little bit on the sides here, which is very good. She should have done this a lot sooner, in my opinion. Takes out my 1 HP Neo tank with her bomber, which is kind of a funny but clever move. Renders my anti-air pretty useless here, and now we both have our superpower ready. And she pops it, and not a strong meteor, if I'm going to be completely honest. It doesn't show until my turn, but this meteor basically just hit a single Neo tank. I think maybe if the meteor had hit here, I actually don't know. I don't know if there would have been a better spot for this meteor to hit. But the problem with the meteor hitting here is that, yes, it took a Neo tank out of action essentially, but it didn't really affect the middle in any big way. But it was still a decent meteor. I mean, that meteor essentially did 20,000 damage, or 20,000 in terms of fun. So here she attacks my anti-air with her tank, and you can see how little she does to it. That anti-air is going to get repaired up to 8 HP and still be completely fine next turn. But overall, I would say it's not a bad meteor. So she attacks with a second tank, but the problem with this is that she leaves her tanks very exposed right now. Pulls her Neo tank back in and brings the next one. And yeah, you can see right now Hanako's in a really good position. That was a strong meteor. That was, you know, she has a pretty big value lead. She spots my rocket as well, which is really well done on her. So you can see, like, the value difference is insane right now, 92,000 to 137,000. But here comes the Ex Machina, and I don't believe it has an animation. And yeah, so here I'm moving my units out of the center because I'm expecting the Ex Machina to hit our fighter. So I don't want it to hit my own units, and it will hit your own units. So I'm moving all my units away. So to bait, basically trying to manipulate where the Ex Machina hits. So I'm moving everything away, and then I pop it. However, you don't see it on this turn, but this Ex Machina actually ended up hitting this Neo tank right here. Which I'm very surprised about. I think that if it hit the fighter, it would probably... So it's 20,000 for the fighter. And I guess it would have hit 1, 2, 1, 2. It actually wouldn't have hit that much. I actually understand why it doesn't hit, why it didn't hit the fighter now, because the missile has 2 range, so it would hit 3 infantry plus a fighter, which wouldn't have been as much as a neo tank. So I actually understand this, but yeah, this was a terrible Ex Machina. It basically affected nothing on the battlefield. It just did 3 HP of damage to a neo tank. So compared to the meteor, this was just like, it was just a poor man's meteor basically. Still, I'm continuing to move in. I get a very, like, this neo tank is very well positioned on the city right now. It's going to be very hard for Hanako to get it out. I decided to attack. I should have attacked with the rocket first. I don't know why I didn't attack with the rocket first. This is something that I tend to do a lot, which I don't like. I use my transport right now to move infantry to the flanks. Again, I would say this is the one advantage that I have over Hanako right now, is that I have 2 transports to her none. So my infantry are crazy mobile compared to hers right now, and you can see that the capture lead that I have is just going to keep expanding over the course of this match. Now, I didn't see this anti-air right here, so I'm pretty confident taking shots with my battlecopter, but I probably should have pulled it back. I move my recon into this city to get it repaired, and this is a good position for the recon. It's relatively tucked safely behind like the mountains, and it still provides a vision over the entire northern section of the map. So again, always keep your recons alive. Always keep your recons alive. They are still great at scouting, even when at 2 HP. So take a shot at her tank in the center right here. I move in my transport, build a mech, and build another neo tank. And yeah, I mean, even though you can still see that Hanako has a massive value lead over me. So day 12, and she's still pretty much ahead, even though I'm slightly ahead of her in terms of properties. So, yep, she keeps moving in, utilizing that insane mobility to her advantage. But you can see how much she struggles to interrupt these caps. I mean, it's quite insane to look at just how many units she has to divert just to interrupt a cap. Like, look at this. I mean, my infantry are just not dying. It's quite insane. She attacks me here. I probably would have gone for the cap here instead of attacking. But yeah, once again, look, 2 tanks and an infantry. This infantry is still on 2 HP. It's insane. Still can't interrupt it. Still can't do anything to it. Man, defense is such a good stat. Or I guess minus firepower is a bad stat. So yeah, once again, she moves in with her neo tank. Regroups her forces into the center here. Still playing pretty well, I would say. Sending the fighter up north was a bit of a weird move, especially considering she has the anti-air right here. Wait a minute. Did the Ex Machina hit her anti-air? I'm actually gonna go back 1 turn. Oh my god, it did. That is so interesting. Okay, guys, I discovered something new about Ex Machina. Oh my god, he did hit her infantry. Okay. So this is actually incredibly interesting because, you see, I've been doing a lot of research on the meteor, and here's the fun thing about the meteor. The meteor cannot be centered on empty terrain, right? So Sturm's meteor strike always has to be centered on a single unit. This means that a meteor cannot physically land here, for example. But it turns out that the Ex Machina actually can be placed on an empty location. It's like a missile fired from a silo. I thought the Ex Machina was actually centered here, but it turns out that Ex Machina actually got centered here and took out the anti-air. That's why she couldn't kill my battlecopter this turn. I didn't know this. This is so interesting. I wonder if this is an Advanced Wars by Web thing, or if it's actually like that in the game too. I'm gonna have to test this. I'm gonna have to boot up my my DS and actually check this, because if Ex Machina can be targeted on empty ground, it is actually a lot better than I thought it would be. So I never saw this, but I'm very grateful I saw this now. Okay, very interesting, very interesting. So that's why she brought her fighter up north. That's why she didn't just kill my battlecopter. Aha, okay. Haha, man, this is so fascinating. All right, so day 13 rolls in, and you can still see that I'm about 20,000 value behind, even though I still... And Hanako is actually now in the income lead right now, 34,000 to my 32,000, so Hanako is winning again. However, I'm starting to capture right here. And I still have those 2 transports that are ferrying troops everywhere. I would say they give me so much, they give me such a big benefit right now. I start going for the com tower here, not because I have any illusions that I might be able to cap it, but just because I know that it's gonna cost Sturm so much to try and interrupt it. So I'm pretty happy doing this. And you can see I'm kind of dominating on the flanks here, despite being behind value-wise. My troops have a very good presence in the areas that they need to be in. And I decided to take a shot at her Neo tank because, yeah, why not utilize the bomber for something, you know? It can't hurt, right? And again, once again, just using those transport copters, I would actually say these 2 transport copters probably won me the game. Like, they are so incredibly valuable, just continuously firing infantry to the sides. Hanako has a very weak infantry presence. I have a very strong infantry presence. So, and I continue building infantry because I know that if I'm going to have 2 transports, I will need to continuously build infantry. And this is important. I mean, even into the late game, you got to keep building infantry. Always need infantry. So day 13 rolls in and Hanako takes off my battlecopter. Could have probably used her anti-air for that, but, you know, might as well use that fighter for something, am I right? She continues moving into the center. Pretty well played by her here. She interrupts my caps. She goes for my comm tower. Or she tries to prevent me from taking her comm tower, I should say. And yeah, utilizing that incredible mobility, moving her infantry into the center. Playing really well here. I honestly thought I was ahead at this point, but Hanako's still playing really well. So she tries to capture this property. Probably should have gotten that a lot sooner. I have both of my properties, or do I actually? No, I do not. No, actually, yeah, I do. I got both of my properties. Hanako does not have her middle property yet, but she does a joint camp, which is pretty smart. Builds an anti-air, a neo tank, and an infantry. So my turn rolls in here, and I continue to clean up. Like you see, Hanako has no presence on the flanks right here. All her forces are centered very heavily in the middle, even though she has way more value than me right now. I have complete domination over the flanks, and I do think this is what ended up costing her the game. So here I get trapped. What the hell happened there? Right, I remember. So here I got myself trapped on an infantry in the mountain. Of course, because Advanced Wars by Web is bugged, and this is something I've talked about with the developers, I don't know why, but so this is not something you were able to do in the vanilla game. Like if I'd played vanilla Advanced Wars Dual Strike or Advanced Wars 2, if I'd gotten trapped here, I would not have been able to unload my infantry. But for whatever reason, the programmers of the site has difficulties coding it so that you're not able to do that. I've spoken to one of the admins about this, and he says they're working on a solution for it. But I don't feel bad about doing this because basically when you play Advanced Wars by Web, you have to follow the Advanced Wars by Web rules. And if Advanced Wars by Web allows you to do this, then I will take advantage of it. I don't consider it a bug or an exploit. This is just how transports work on Advanced Wars by Web. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, I'm not going to do that because that's not how it works in the real game. Hell no. You know, until they fix this, I am going to take advantage of it in every match. I'm sure Hanako would have done the same. So, I move my Neo tanks up here. I take a shot at her tank. I move my battlecopter into the center. Get a really good shot on her anti-air with my mech right here. So again, thanks to this transport, man, I'm getting so many good mech engagements in this battle. I start capturing her city here. And you can really tell like how much I'm dominating the flanks here. Despite being behind in value, the flanks are going to fall very soon, and I'm going to take all those properties, and it's going to be really bad for Hanako. Now I do believe, even though the timers don't represent this very well, I don't really know how accurate these timers are, but I do remember Hanako being very behind on time. Basically, she dropped out mid-match, and she lost like 3 minutes on the clock, but I did give her like 2.5 returns. I paused the timer, so I do believe we made up for it. But I do remember Hanako being very stressed out because she got very low on time towards the end there. I put my rocket on this HQ right here, and this was probably one of the few, like, this was probably one of the biggest mistakes that I did during the course of the match here. I didn't see the bomber, and I didn't see the Neo tank, but I thought that, you know, placing a rocket on this HQ is going to make it pretty safe because it's 4 extra defense, and I have essentially 30% extra defense because I'm from bolts. So it's like 70% extra defense on the rocket. So even a Neo tank should not do that much damage to me, but of course I completely underestimated how much damage they're able to really do. So... but I continue cleaning up Hanako's infantry, and once again, I'm utilizing both my transports to their full effect. I will probably say those 2 transports won me this game. So, I take a shot here. I didn't get a good luck roll. I was a little bit sad about that. But here, Hanako's turn rolls in, and she moves into the mountains to get full vision, and here comes the bomber. Boom. That did a lot more damage than I thought it would, honestly. I thought my rocket would take way less damage, but I was very sad to see this. I lose an anti-air, I lose my rocket, and at this point, I thought I'd lost the match. I really thought I'd lost the match. Here comes the battlecopter as well, and honestly, like at this point, I'm considering resigning. I remember being so frustrated here. She gets a good shot on my Neo tank as well. I mean, it's insane how well this match went for Hanako. She interrupts my cap here, which is kind of cute. Attacks my Neo Tank. And here, I actually thought she was going to pop Meteor Strike 1. I was like, okay. I think it would honestly have been good here to just pop Meteor Strike 1 while you were so far ahead. So, but yeah, once again, like, this was a really good turn for her. And, like, looking back at this match, I'm astounded by how far behind I was, even this late into the match. She builds another Neo Tank and more infantry and sends her fighter away. This was a pretty good move on her. But then again, this also shows the weakness of minus 20% firepower. Any other CO would have one-shot my transport. Sturm is not able to do that. And so the transport still lives, and it can still perform just as well as it used to. So day 15 rolls in, and I do believe we played with a 20-day turn limit, and I am ahead with 1 property. And we got 5 days left on the clock. I attack her Neo Tank with my bomber, even though knowing there's a fighter here, because I have an anti-air in the vicinity, so I'm pretty confident about this. I take out her Neo Tank with my battlecopter, and that allows my anti-air to come in and take a shot at her fighter. Only brings it down to 7 HP though, so it's still pretty dangerous. I don't want to let Hanako get this property, so I attack her here. And yeah, I get a pretty good shot at her Neo Tank, so that's pretty good. But I have absolutely no response to her bomber down south, and I realize that this is a big problem, and I need to do something about it very quickly. So I build a fighter, because I realize, you know, I need something fast that can actually reach her. But in addition to that, I also build 2 anti-air, because I realize that that bomber is very dangerous right now. And you can see we're both very close to getting our superpowers. I was kind of hoping I would get Ex Machina this turn, but I wasn't able to get it, sadly. But yeah, she's completely foregoing the north here. And this is going to end up costing her the match. But it's insane, like, watching this back, it's a lot more even than I thought it was. I thought I was absolutely crushing at this point, but no, I'm not. In terms of value, I'm losing heavily, but in terms of income, I'm winning quite a lot. So day 15 rolls in, Hanako takes off my battlecopter pretty well there, and there comes the Meteor Strike, and this was a pretty devastating Meteor Strike, I would say. It hits a bomber, a Neo Tank, and an anti-air, and doesn't even hit her fighter. So that was a really good Meteor Strike. Insanely good Meteor Strike right there. Much better than I thought it would be. It completely shuts down the north. I honestly can't believe I won this match, looking back at it. So she still has a full HP bomber, wrecking havoc in the center here. This was really weird. Like this move right here made no sense from Hanako's perspective. I think at this point she was really low on time and made a lot of bad mistakes as a result. You can see that there are 2 bases right here, and if you look at the range of the anti-air, you know that they can reach the city. So attacking this infantry right here with this bomber, probably like one of the biggest mistakes she did over the course of this match. She joined caps together here because she knows she needs to capture properties, which is, you know, I commend her. That was a good move. And she attacks my Neo Tank on my HQ, which I think was a little bit ballsy considering how much defense that guy has. But she's doing a pretty good job just surrounding her bomber, of course. This is the problem. Look what superpower I just have. And you want to, and this is another one I think I will chalk this one down to having time constraints. Because, like, against any other CO, this move would have made perfect sense, but she's up against Von Bolts. So the fact that she's clumping her units together like this, I think honestly this is what lost her the match. This move right here. I think she would have had a good chance of winning if she hadn't done this. I think she just forgot who she was up against for a moment right here. Builds another Neo Tank, more infantry, battlecopters. And so here I see the perfect Ex Machina. I pop it right away and it hits right in the center here, disabling this bomber, this Neo Tank. This was such a good Ex Machina. Like, this was an amazing Ex Machina. So here I take down her fighter. Did she not move it? No, she moved it. Okay. That was kind of weird. Let me check again. Did she actually not move her fighter? She did not move her fighter. Yeah, she actually did not move her fighter. She forgot to move her fighter. Man, this... Looking back at this match right now, like, I think it's insane how much the clock stressed her out, actually. Because, like, look at that. She had a 7 HP fighter that just basically sat there and did nothing. So, yeah. Like, these 2 moves right here lost her the game, I'm pretty sure. Not moving the fighter and clumping up her units before the Ex Machina, allowing me to take them out very easily and also send in my anti-air like this, taking down the bomb. Yeah, this was the game-losing turn right here. This was definitely the game-losing turn. And now I have 38,000 to her 32,000. I have basically all the properties in the center. And with only 4 days left on the clock right now, there is absolutely no way Hanako is going to be able to turn this around. Because basically, she needs to start capping 4 properties on day 18 with any chance of success here. So she has 2 turns to get her infantry into position. She is capping this city right here, and she's gonna get it. But like, even like I'm ahead in value right now, but she hasn't produced units yet. But like, it's astounding to see just how differently a high income match plays out, because whoever has the most value actually doesn't tell the whole story. So again, she's doing a pretty valiant job here, taking the center and doing what she can to kind of like keep me away here. She takes up my transport finally, but it has done its job basically. But right now, like you can see, it's day 17. If she doesn't start capturing properties literally tomorrow, then she's gonna fall behind. And you can see she's just getting crushed in the south right now. I have so much presence up in the north as well. I'm capping like her properties here. That is how cocky I am right now. And I feel confident doing it, because all I need to do is just slow her down and just make sure she can't reach any of the properties in the flanks. So she's not going to be able to do anything in the center, and she doesn't have any units down either north or south. So this match is practically won at this point, but let's just go through it really quickly. I do believe she resigns at some point, but yeah, I mean, like, looking back at it right now, I definitely think Hanako should have won this match. But again, that Ex Machina in the center there and losing her fighter, I think that is what lost her the match. That and the fact that I had transports. But I mean, she's doing pretty well, still fighting back pretty hard. And I'm still, but she's just getting cleaned out in the center here. I mean, it all really comes down to how she positioned her units, I think. But you can just tell, like, I am just completely driving her back right now. And now I have 40,000 to her 32,000. Day 18 rolls in. She keeps moving her units down. Takes some good shots at me right now. But again, like, if she doesn't start capturing properties this turn, there is no way she's going to be able to win. So we're just gonna, now I build a mega tank. That was kind of like just the BM move, you know, just here's a mega tank. I basically won this match now. And day 19 rolls in. And she takes a very short turn. I think she had like 5 seconds left on the clock here. She gets one last meteor strike in though, which is kind of fun. And then it is GG. So a really fun match, very fun match. I liked it a lot. I can't believe how behind I was for the whole duration of it. I really cannot believe how behind I was. But again, like, I think, honestly, Hanako lost due to the time constraints that she had. I think if this was a proper match where she had plenty of time to think about her moves, she would have probably won this one really easily. Sturm has a big advantage over Fumbolt, but again, that Ex Machina that I thought was completely useless actually ended up being quite useful, and that's very interesting to see. And I actually got 2 really good Ex Machinas this match, and that's cool. I really wish they'd add an animation for it, though, like they did with Meteor Strike. That's definitely something they're working on, I think. But yeah, this was a fun little match. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Not every day we get to see Fumbolt fight Sturm. That's a very rare matchup indeed. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a like and a comment if you did, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.